The Blue Jackets go from having their best game of the season to the same old Blue Jackets against Pittsburgh. We're talking about those games on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, please feel free to do so. And if you email a screenshot of you being subscribed to the YouTube page, you're going to be entered into a competition to win 2 tickets to the April 1st game against the Colorado Avalanche nationwide. And LockedOnBlueJackets@gmail.com is the email address for that. So if you haven't done that yet, please do so. And you can go and see this team maybe win a game, probably not, but it's always fun nationwide either way. We'll talk about both games in the back-to-back in this episode because they played maybe their best game of the season against Vegas and then came out against Pittsburgh and just stepped on every single rake they could possibly step on. So we'll talk about the Pittsburgh game in a minute, but I wanted to touch on some things in the Vegas game first because number one, depth scoring. Alex Nylander hat trick. Just a Danforth goal. Eric Branson goal, which is hilarious. Igor Chinikov goal. Jake Bean got a point. Sean Crowley got an assist. Lots of points for everyone involved. Great to see Gaudreau with an assist. Alexander Texier had a great night, 2 assists. Obviously, Alex Nylander with the hat trick. Only, I think, 4 Blue Jackets did not get a point. And that was Voronkov, Olivier, Roslovic, Boquist, and Severson. So 5. Tarasov, excellent. 36 of 39 saves for a 923. Everyone was great. I had absolutely no issues. Okay, maybe I had some issues in that game. Power play continues to struggle, but they also didn't let Vegas score on the power play. So, the penalty kill was fine. We're going to talk a little bit more about the penalty kill in the next segment because I have some issues. But they got the job done. Partially, I think it's that Aiden Hill was kind of having an off night, which he's allowed. The Blue Jackets are allowed to take advantage of that also. 27 saves on 32 shots for Hill. And Tarasov was great. Like I said, 3 goals on 39 shots, gave the team a chance to win. And Alex Nylander has been such a bright spot in the last kind of couple of weeks. He's absolutely going to come back down to earth soon. Probably already has started to. But what was it, 6 points in his first 4 games as a Blue Jacket? He's taken advantage of a situation where he's on a new team. He's got something to prove. He's getting plenty of ice time. He's gelling with his line mate. I think that Sellinger, Texier, Nylander line is a ton of fun. Is it the most defensively sound? No, but it's fun and it's getting the job done. And he's just kind of taking advantage of that. He's going to ride this line as far as it'll go, which is really fun to see. Other things I liked from this game. It was just a good game. And that's not super deep analysis, I know, but the Blue Jackets, they held their own. They did not collapse in the third period. If I just pull up what order the goals were scored in. So they went out to a 2-0 lead. Came back, tied the game. They came back. Vegas tied it 2-2 by the end of the first after scoring 2 goals in about 45 seconds, I think, which I've seen this film before, but the Blue Jackets did not crumble in the second period. Eric Branson scored a goal to put them ahead, and that was the last time the Jackets would trail in that game. Nylander scores the 4-2 goal. They get one back to make it 4-3, but Chinikov scores to make it 5-3, and then Nylander with the empty netter. So, like, they didn't collapse in the third period. They didn't crumble after a couple of quick goals late in a period, because we've seen that before where the Blue Jackets allow a tying goal, or like they allow a comeback to start at the end of a period and then just collapse at the start of the next period. Everyone got involved. They beat the Golden Knights. Like, I think a lot of it was probably that the Golden Knights probably underestimated the Blue Jackets a little bit, which, can you blame them? No, not really, but I think the Blue Jackets did well to take advantage of that. And it was the best game that I've seen them play maybe all season. You know, they've had some good wins. The 9-4 game against the Sabres comes to mind, that 1-0 win against St. Louis, but Blue Jackets have had trouble with Vegas, like, historically. And the fact that they came out and did this, I think is really, really impressive. Vegas was struggling a little bit. They've lost 8 of their last 10 after this game. But I'm just gonna take it, you know? And again, to everyone that was, complaining about how this team loves to win games and ruin its draft position, don't worry, they are still in place for 4th in the draft, which means, one of Demidov, Catton, Lindstrom, Boom, Prek, like, all of these guys are going to be available. So, like, I'm not worried about them missing out on a good player. I think first overall is out of reach. I talked about that a little bit either earlier this week or late last week, but they're still exactly where they are in the standings. They haven't lost any ground over the Ducks, I don't believe. Maybe like 2 points, but they also haven't really gained on the Senators, who are above them. I'm just pulling up the standings now. They are 1 point behind the Senators, but the Senators have 3 games in hand over them, and then the Ducks are 5 points behind and have 1 game in hand. So, like, they are where they are, If they'd won against Pittsburgh, they would have jumped above the Senators in the draft position, and then they would have been, in the running for 5th overall, which is still, still pretty great. We got Ken Johnson 5th overall. We got David Jiricek 6th overall. Dropping a couple of places in the draft rankings is not the end of the world, especially if you're not going to win the lottery. I feel like between 3 and 6 is kind of, chances are the guy that you want will be there. Just because of how different draft boards work. I know that the Blue Jackets, obviously with Adam Fantilli, they had him 2nd on their draft board, and he managed to fall to 3rd. I think they had David Jiricek probably a little bit higher than 6th on theirs, but he fell to 6th, so they take him, so it works out. I'm not worried about the tank. I'm not worried about the draft position. I enjoyed the game. I am worried about how they reverted to type against Pittsburgh, because of course they did. And that's what we're going to talk about next here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you guys about Sleeper, because the season's almost over, and I think it's fair to say the Blue Jackets have underachieved. Regardless of that, though, you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. They're our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Entries can be made in under a minute. They also have NFL, NBA, MLB, college football. All you have to do is pick whether guys like Crosby, Malkin, Jenner, Gaudreau will record more or less in their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times your money on Sleeper, all you need to do is correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. That's right. All you have to do is get 8 questions right, and you can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper terms of use for details and locational availability. I also have to tell you about Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. Now some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SPIC, is a registered broker-dealer. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins game, because how many times have we seen this kind of game from this team? And I didn't have any kind of aspirations going into this game beyond like, hey, respect Jet Greaves because he's a baby and deserves you guys playing well in front of him. Don't let Emil Bemstrom embarrass us. And I said, don't make me use my Jake Gensel meme because I forgot that he was injured. So I didn't get to use my Jake Gensel meme, but I'm fine with that. So there was a game a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to think which one it was, and I feel like it was maybe the Carolina Hurricanes game, where the Blue Jackets just decided to do this thing where, oh no, it was the LA Kings game. It was the Kings game. They decided to do this thing where they just let the Kings waltz right into the blue paint and basically do whatever they wanted. And I saw exactly the same thing from the Blue Jackets last night against the Penguins. That first game, the first goal, somehow Jesse Puljujarvi was behind everyone. Boone Jenner was the last guy back. Both defensemen had already left. You know, Damon Severson had decided to just go somewhere. Ivan Provorov was on the other side of the ice, couldn't get back in time. Just a mess. And they passed the puck straight to Jesse Puljujarvi, who, you know, one-on-one. Jet Greaves did what he could. I'm not mad at Jet Greaves for this game. He deserved better. Second goal. Again, Severson and Provorov defending on the rush is an adventure, because Evgeny Malkin just barrels down the right-hand side, and again, slap shot straight past Greaves. What's he going to do? They managed to tie the game. 2 quick goals. Andrew Peeke scores his first of the season, thanks to, technically that was an Evgeny Malkin goal, deflected off his stick, but hey, shout out to Andrew Peeke, who I guess heard all of the crap I was talking about him and was like, oh, I'm going to take this personally. In fairness to Andrew Peeke, I didn't hate his game. I thought he was perfectly acceptable. Great that he scored a goal. However, then is where it starts to get rough for the Blue Jackets, because they hold their own in the second period. They outshoot the Penguins 16-6 in that second period, but a power play goal for Ricard Raquel with about 5 minutes left. Penguins power play has been ass all year, and hey, the Blue Jackets PK is good for what ails you. So Ricard Raquel scores on the power play, makes it 3-2, and then the Blue Jackets have to kill a penalty basically as soon as they get back for the third period, because there was a phantom high sticking call. And then a third. The Blue Jackets only had 1 power play in this game. They didn't score on it. The Penguins scored on 2 out of the 3, despite the fact that Jack Roslovic with a shorthanded goal. Not very much longer after that, they let the corpse of Jeff Carter score the game-winning goal, again, on power play, assist to Emil Bemstrom, because of course, and that's game. Riley Smith scores his second of the night, I believe. No, first of the night, excuse me. To make it 5-3, but really it's those 2 power plays. It's the fact that they just let the Penguins waltz all over the ice, do what they want. And I get that, you know, it's the Penguins, it's Sidney Crosby, it's Evgeny Malkin, it's Chris Letang, it's Erik Karlsson, blah, 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 blah. Like, you can't, like, every single, I didn't even get to talk about the Erik Branson own goal, where he's behind the net and he, like, turns and slap shots it into his own net, bouncing it off of the back of Jet Greaves. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Like, he's just, and this is after I said so many nice things about Erik Branson after the Vegas game. I've been saying nice things about him all season, and every so often he just does something that makes me want to, like, pick him up and shake him. And like, that wouldn't go well for me because he's much, much bigger and scarier than I am. But like, just the worst timing brain fart in the entire world. Like, what was your plan? I don't get it. I truly don't get it. Like, you had so many options, and that was what you chose to do. Maybe I'm being too critical. Maybe I would have done exactly the same thing. I don't know. But just self-inflicted injury after self-inflicted injury, like, that's the first 3 goals of the game were all... First one, Puyabi standing there, no one challenging him because of a brutal turnover. Second goal, Evgeny Malkin on the rush. The defensemen are somewhere, definitely somewhere on the ice. Third goal, own goal. And from there, they just are like, great on Jack Roslovic to score that shorthanded goal to tie things up, and then unfortunately they couldn't hold on to it. So just a supremely frustrating loss, especially on the back of what has been several really strong games in a row. And like, the Blue Jackets, obviously, the big thing was, they won back-to-back games for the first time in like 4 months, 3.5 months. Can they win 3 in a row? No. Pittsburgh breaks their 3-game losing streak, which, you're welcome, Pittsburgh, I guess. And they just looked like a completely different team. And like, I'm willing to give some credence to 5 games in 7 days is rough. I believe they had back-to-back games, then a day off, then a game, then a day off, and then back-to-back games. So like, I get it, they're tired, but they look like a completely different team. And I think that's been the most frustrating thing about this season, has been the inconsistency, you know? And it was extremely noticeable today, or last night, I guess, in the Penguins game. So now I'm like, okay, what team are we going to see in the next game? They've got the Oilers tomorrow, which we'll talk about in a minute here, but which I'm not looking forward to, by the way, because it's been a minute since Connor McDavid has scored a highlight reel goal on someone, and it feels like he's due. So, but we'll talk about the game in a second here. I wanted to touch on one last thing on the healthy scratching of Kromachenko, so they could play 11 forwards and 7 defensemen to get Andrew Peeke back in the lineup. I still don't understand. Okay, I understand logically Vincent's reasoning of, okay, he needs to reset. He'll be back on Thursday. I wanted to get Peeke in the lineup because he's a good pro and he works hard and like blah blah blah. I feel like you can't make a lineup based on, oh, well, this guy works hard, so he deserves to get in the lineup. Especially if his hard work is not paying off, like, at all. And I feel like Peake's had a terrible season. Shout out to it, like, good for him. He had a good game last night. I will allow that. He didn't have any defensive horror shows that I saw, and he managed to score his first goal of the season. So, like, maybe Vincent was right in putting him in, but after 2 strong games, or, you know, I feel like it's been, 4 or 5 strong games in a row, despite the fact that they've lost a couple of them, you decide to sit one of your top scorers in a game that is always going to be a problem, the Penguins in Pittsburgh, a game that you ostensibly want to win because it's a Metropolitan Division opponent, and screw with the chemistry and put in a player who, the Blue Jackets, I believe, have now won 4 out of the 22 games that Andrew Peeke has dressed for. You mess with the defensive chemistry, you mess with the forward chemistry, and, like, here we are. That's what happened. You could have written this. I could have recorded this episode before the game, and probably would have had the same result, you know? But it's over, and now we move on to the next game, which is the Edmonton Oilers, which is even less fun than playing the Penguins, I think. So we'll talk about that game in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you guys about Indeed, because no matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed. They are the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And they're the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't have to pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all, and that's Indeed. They partner with you on every step of the hiring process. They've got tools like Indeed Instant Match, they've got assessments, they've got virtual interviews, and with Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is the only site that I use when I'm job hunting. I think it's the best one, so I can only imagine it is also the best one if you are hiring. Start your hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer is valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk about tomorrow's game because it sure is. Blue Jackets facing off with the Edmonton Oilers. They lost the game 4-1 when they were in Edmonton, so they have a chance to split the season series here. However, as we all know, Connor McDavid is inevitable. He's got 10 points in his last 5 games. Zach Hyman has 5 goals in his last 5 games. Zach Hyman has 40 goals on the season, 42 goals on the season, excuse me. Connor McDavid is 1 point away from 100 on the season. And I don't think the Oilers have a game tonight, so they do not. So he's almost definitely hitting 100 points on the season against the Blue Jackets, which I do hate. And that's not even getting into players like Leon Draisaitl or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who I feel like is almost an afterthought on this team, which is unfair because I like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins this game a lot. Evan Bouchard is having a great season on defense, 60 points in 60 games, including 15 goals. His 15 goals as a defenseman are more than I believe all but 4 Blue Jackets have fewer goals than that. So, again, it's going to be... I just feel like it's going to be a horror show. Do I have any logic behind this? No. Oilers are on a 5-game win streak coming into the game. They just beat Boston in overtime. Blue Jackets have 5 wins in their last 10 games, which is not terrible. But Stuart Skinner has figured it out this season after a truly horrendous start. He's now 29-13-2. He's got a .906 save percentage. For the Blue Jackets to have their leading point scorer of the last 5 games not even have a headshot on NHL.com, he just has the gray stock photo. That feels like a problem to me. Alex Nyland has 6 points in his last 5 games, 4 goals. Zach Werenski quietly has had 5 assists in his last 5 games, and again, he's creeping up the points totals. He's got 38 of them now in 50 games, which is great. I'm going to see if he's still on pace to beat his career high, because I suspect he probably is, because the Blue Jackets have needed Zach Werenski. I'm not going to get into a whole thing about how badly this team needs Zach Werenski. Yeah, he's currently on pace for 54 points now in 70 games. His previous career high is 48. So providing he keeps doing what he's doing, it would be nice if we could put the puck in the net a little bit more, but I'm not going to complain about a new career high for Zach Werenski, especially considering he hasn't played a full season since his second season. Or his third season, excuse me. He played 78, 77, and 82 in his first 3 seasons, and then played 63, 35, 68, only 13 last year, and he's on pace for 70 out of 82 this year. So, that'll be the most games that he's played since 2018, 2019. So, he's definitely a guy that I'm going to be watching. I feel like he's not being flashy with it, but he has very quietly been having a series of good games for this team, especially offensively. I'm just going to pull up what his last 5 games look like. An assist versus Pittsburgh, 1 versus Vegas, 2 assists versus Chicago, 1 versus Carolina. So 5 points in his last 4 games. Nothing in the New York game before that. had 3 games with no points, and then scored 2 goals against Anaheim, 1 goal against the Sharks, assists against Ottawa, Tampa Bay, St. Louis. Like, so he's consistently, he's almost at a point per game, which is great to see. So he's definitely, I think he might be, you know what? I'm going to pick him to score a goal tomorrow night. I think that's, I mean, you know what? Go big. Go big or go home. Like, he's a great choice. I think Marchenko was going to be a good choice to predict for a goal scorer. But I'm going to go Zach Werenski. I think it'll be fun. Why not? Do I want to predict that the Blue Jackets will win this game? Sure. Why not? I've bet on the Blue Jackets all season, and I love to be right. And if I am right, but the Blue Jackets lose, then that will kind of make me sad. So, whatever. In terms of score predictions, it feels like it's going to be messy. It feels like it's going to be one of those, like, 5-4 games, or, God forbid, like, the 7-6 nightmare that San Jose dealt with last night. So let's go with a 5-4 game. I think Zach Werenski can score a goal, and if I can have an honorable mention for a goal scorer, I'm going to go with Kirill Marchenko. But I think this game is going to be messy. I'm not expecting like great hockey out of basically anyone, but I am expecting mess and chaos. And sometimes that's the most you can hope for, especially against a team like Edmonton. So that's kind of all I've got for today. Tomorrow, I have got another prospect profile. I sat down with Will Scout to talk about Konsta Helenius, who is who's this year's Finnish question mark. So I'm super excited to get into it with Will, because he has a lot of very interesting things to say about him and about Finnish hockey in general. Thank you for listening to this episode. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets are free and available on all podcast platforms. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on SiriusXM. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I think I already said that. I've lost control of this outro already. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Once again, I'm just going to say it a third time. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Thank you for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.